Hello everybody, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over what's called factoring the difference of squares. So this is the equation for the difference of squares. You have x squared minus y squared is equal to x plus y times x minus y. So the first thing I want to do is talk about sort of where this formula comes from, why the formula works, and also we're going to be talking about how to use the formula in order to factor some polynomials. So let's begin with that. So first of all, I want to talk about where the formula comes from. So here we have the right hand side of the equation. So you have x plus y times x minus y. And if I was to ask you to multiply these two together, what you would do is you would first take the x and distribute it to both of these terms in red, right? So you have x times x is x squared, x times negative y is negative xy. Then the next thing that you would do is that you would distribute the y to both terms. So here you have y times x is once again xy, and y times negative y is negative y squared. So now notice what happens here. You have a negative xy and you have a positive xy. And what happens is that those two cancel out. So what you end up getting left over with is x squared minus y squared. So that is going to be a difference of two squares. That's why it's called the difference of squares formula. So this is the formula we're going to be working with today. It's true that x squared minus y squared is equal to x plus y times x minus y. Okay, so let's do a few problems with using this formula to factor the difference of squares. So I'll leave the formula right here on the corner of the screen as we work through some examples. So here we're asked to factor this right here. We're asked to factor completely and to multiply out to verify the answer. So here you have x squared minus 4, right? So the first thing that we want to do is actually rewrite this as the difference of squares. So here this says x squared, so we're good to go. But here there's not a squared, but we can rewrite it as a square, right? So 4 is actually equal to 2 squared. So what we can do is rewrite 4 as 2 squared, okay? So once we have that, we know that x is just equal to x, and our y in this case is equal to 2, okay? So the way to rewrite this would just be x plus 2 times x minus 2, okay? So once again, the first step is just to rewrite it as a difference of two squares, and then you can apply this formula right here. You just do the x plus y and the x minus y. In this case, y is going to be equal to 2 though. Then we got to multiply it out to verify the answer. So if we take the x and distribute, you have x times x is x squared, x times negative 2 is negative 2x. We can also distribute the 2, so we have 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And the goal here is that when you verify this, is you want to make sure the middle two terms cancel out. And in this case, they do. The negative 2x and the positive 2x actually ends up canceling out, so you get the original polynomial, okay? So the factored polynomial would be x plus 2 times x minus 2. It works out because when you multiply these two polynomials, you get the original one, okay? So that's how to use the difference of squares formula. Okay, so let's go over another example real quick to make sure that you guys got it. So here you have 4n squared minus 1, and you're asked to factor this thing out, okay? So once again, we should rewrite it as a difference of squares. So the way to do it for the first term is to realize, okay, so what squared is 4? That's 2, right? And what squared is n squared? It's just going to be n. So if you square 2n, you get 4n squared, okay? For this term, you have 1, and the way to write that as a square is just to write it as 1 squared, because 1 squared is just 1, right? So the purpose of this first step right here is to write it as a difference of two squares, okay? So the first term, let's call it x, is going to be 2n right here. That's going to be this x right here. And the second term, y, is going to be just 1. So we can just use this formula right here to factor it out. So that's going to end up being 2n plus 1 and 2n minus 1. Okay, that should be the solution, but we should sort of multiply out to make sure that that's the answer. So we distribute the 2n to both terms. We have 2n times 2n is 4n squared. We have 2n times negative 1 is negative 2n. We're going to distribute the 1 to both terms, so 1 times 2n is 2n, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. The 2n's end up canceling out as they should, and then you get the original polynomial 4n squared minus 1. Okay, so we know that that's true, so we can circle our answer. Okay, so for these problems, what you want to do is write it as a difference of two squares. Use the formula right here to multiply things out, and then, or to factor things out, excuse me, and then multiply out to verify that that's the solution.